So I remember when Google Earth first came out in the early 2000s, I was at my uncle's house and he sat me down on his computer and said, hey, you gotta check this out, and he showed me Google Earth. After he showed me just how to use it and navigate it, then he showed me the feature where you could animate a point-to-point animation. So you could plug in 2 different locations and then have the camera fly around. And it was so amazing. Now you've probably already seen a lot of these animations either on the news or in documentary films. They're used a lot, and the way they're done is someone will create an animation inside of Google Earth and then they'll do a simple screen recording and export that. Well, now Google has introduced a much better and much more fun way of doing this. So Google Earth Studio is a browser-based animation tool for all of Google Earth's satellite and 3D imagery. It gives users a ton of options for creating, customizing, and exporting Google Earth animations and videos. It's perfect for news agencies, documentary filmmakers, nonprofits, or for anyone who just loves maps. So in this video, I'm going to give you an in-depth look at the interface. I'm going to show you how to create some cool animations. I'm going to show you how to export those animations, and I'm going to also show you how to bring those animations into Premiere Pro and After Effects. Now I'm only going to be scratching the surface with After Effects because this program goes way in depth with the compositing options you can have with After Effects. So I'm probably going to create a standalone tutorial because way too many cool things. So a quick disclaimer, Google Earth Studio is still in a preview release version, which means you're going to have to send in a request, and my request took about a month to get approved. Also, you're going to need to be running in the latest version of Chrome, and you're going to need to have a Google account. I really have no idea if and when they'll do a wide release. Alright, let's take a closer look. While this tool can get pretty in-depth, I want to show you how easy it is to use. So if you have no animation experience, it doesn't matter. And let me show you why. So here I can open an old project or I can create a new blank project, but if I hit the drop-down menu, you're going to see a quick start button. And this is going to give me access to a bunch of animation presets, which really are very easy to use. So let me just quickly show you how we can knock one of these out really quick. So we have a couple of different options here. We have zoom to, zooms in on a location. We have orbit. We have point to point. And we have spiral. And also fly to and orbit. So let's just pick orbit here. I'm going to click on orbit. This is going to create a new project, create start. And now it says, where do you want to set your point of interest? So I'm going to select the Arc de Triomphe. I live in France, and this happens to be the area where all the yellow vests, if you've been watching the news lately, all the yellow vest protesters, this is kind of where they like to protest here. There's been a lot of chaos at this particular location. Okay, so I typed in the location, and now it has kind of a straight overhead view here. It looks kind of like Google Maps. And I'm going to go ahead and click the next button here. Okay, and now we can see a little timeline here, and we can see our animation. And what I'm going to do here is I have 4 different options to change, or if I want to change this animation in the opposite direction, I can have it go this way. So now I'm going to bring the radius down just a little bit. I'm going to come down in altitude. There we go. And I'm going to leave the target altitude where it's at, and I'm going to leave the start heading where it's at. Click next. And let's say we want it to be 15 seconds instead of 50. And that's basically going to do an entire orbit in 15 seconds. So it's going to go all the way around, and it'll be loopable as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click that checkbox. Okay, so now it brought us into the actual application interface here, which we're going to go into more depth in just a minute. But you're going to see it's placed all of our keyframes here, and everything's good to go. So this animation is good to go. I can just go up here and hit render and just give it a name and type in Arc de Triomphe. There we go. And just like that, I have, no animation experience. I can go ahead and render that out. That's how easy it is to create. I'm going to go ahead and click cancel. Now let's take a closer look at what we got going on in the interface here. I'm going to go ahead and start from scratch again. I'm going to go to File, New Blank Project. But as you see in here, we still have access to all these quick start options. But I'm going to go ahead and click Blank Project. And I'm going to click Don't Save. And in regards to saving projects, it will save associated to your Google account. So when you launch the website again, you can automatically reload, any of your saved projects. Okay, so let's call this one Arc de Triomphe. And this is the cool thing. I can change the dimensions, the duration, and the frame rate. And the dimensions can go up to a maximum of just above, I think it's 4K. And I'm going to change the frame rate, or frames. I want to look at time code. 15 seconds is a good duration for me, and the frame rate's fine, but if you look, here's all the different options for frame rates. We can go from 24 to 60. So I'm going to keep that on 30, click Start, and that's going to bring up the interface here. So let's take a look at what we got going on. Now, Google based the design of Earth Studio off of industry standard animation tools. So this works off keyframes on a timeline. So here, down here, we have our timeline, and over here to the left, we have our attributes. We have attributes for camera position, such as longitude, latitude, and altitude, and camera rotation, such as pan and tilt. Over here, we can add different attributes, such as camera target, field of view, time of day, which is very, very cool, by the way. We can make it nighttime if we want. We can turn the clouds on and off. We can turn the ocean overlays on or off. Now, the way we make our animation is we add keyframes. So essentially, we'll add a keyframe, move the playhead to a different spot in time, change the attribute, add another keyframe, and then we have an animation. So that is how this program is based off of. But first, we want to learn how to navigate with our camera here. It's important to learn a few keyboard shortcuts to make your life much, much easier. So let's take a look here up in this viewport at how we can control the Earth. So if you've ever worked in Google Earth, it's very much similar. I can just grab the Earth here and drag it around. I can zoom in with my mouse scroll. I have actually a couple of different viewport options. I can toggle the viewport with this button over here, and if I go to this 2 box, now you can see I've got this other cool different way to look at the interface here. I can see my camera moving as I change the view here. I can change the view of this second window here, and there's some settings here, and I can also navigate via this window as well. I'm going to switch it back to the one window. Now let's go back to the Arc de Triomphe, and I can just type it in my search bar here. Like I can type in any location. It's going to take us straight there. And now let me show you some of these shortcuts. So here we are, we're straight over top of the Arc de Triomphe. Now if I click and drag, just as I did before, I can move the Earth around. And now if I want to pan, tilt, or orbit the camera, I'm going to hold the Alt key first, and we're going to orbit the camera. So if I hold Alt and then I click right here, you're going to see this set of crosshairs comes up straight on where my cursor was. That's important to know. Now my camera point of view is basically going to orbit around that target. So as I click and drag here, you're going to see now we can start to see the 3D aspect here, which is super, super cool. So I'm just going to kind of pivot it this way. You can see I can orbit all around quite fast. So I'm going to orbit it to maybe right here. And now I can zoom in, kind of change the altitude here. Now the other shortcut is when you hold Control. So I'm going to hold the Control key, and this controls the camera rotation. So here I can do tilt and pan moves. There's a tilt and there's a pan. So those are the two main modifier keys you want to learn: Control and Alt and/or Option. Alt, again, click and drag to get that target, and then we orbit around our target, and then Control is for pan and tilt. Super, super important, and that's the first thing I think you should learn. Okay, so now I'm ready to create some animations. Let me go ahead and show you one thing in particular. I'm going to click Add Attributes, and I'm going to click on Time of Day, and you see that actually changes the time of day here. And it's added the time attribute here. We can actually change the date and also the time of day. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to animate this from 8 in the morning, add a keyframe, go to the end, and change it to maybe 11 o'clock. And then we see another keyframe is added here. And now if I scroll through here, you're going to see pretty crazy. The days change there. Now also what's interesting is you see the intensity of the shadows are actually changing, but kind of a bummer. If we look at our big shadow here from the Arc de Triomphe, it's not changing, but nevertheless, still very, very cool thing that you can animate here. Now I'm going to go ahead and let's make the time of day not change that much. We only want it to change a little bit. Like, let's say this is only a little bit. And let's bring this one up to 10 maybe. Okay, so it's only 1 hour here. So let's say this is kind of a time lapse. Now we want it to go from, we want it to do kind of a little fly around. So I'm going to hit the all attributes keyframe here, and that's going to add keyframes to all these attributes. So this is our start point. I'm going to go to the end point here, and I just want it to kind of orbit around the arc. So I'm going to hold the Alt key, click on here, and now it's going to kind of orbit like this and maybe up a little bit. And that'll be our end point. And you see no keyframes have been added here, but now these have turned yellow, meaning that the attributes have changed and they need to be keyframed again. So I'm going to go ahead and click keyframe all attributes. Okay, so the keyframes are in place. Now I want to smooth things out. So what I can do here is I can add some easy ease. Now I can do it in a couple of different ways. I have the animation menu up here with all of my easing options, or I can just go directly down here and highlight some of the keyframes, right click, and I'm going to say ease out for these. And you can see now that they have these little arrows attached. I'm going to do that for the camera rotation options as well. Ease out. And then for all of these here, I'm going to ease these in. And we won't worry about time. And there's also a couple of curve options here. If I right click straight in the timeline, not over top of any of this, you can see that I can look at value graphs and I can look at speed graphs. So if I click on value graphs now and I click an attribute, you can see I can see my value here. I have a couple of different options, and I can switch this over to speed graph as well. And we can see since we added the easy ease, now I can control the speed here, kind of have it ramp up, ramp out, however I want. Really a lot of options here. Okay, now I have my animation good to go. Kind of ramps up here and just does this ever so slight push around. Now I'm going to export this. So you'll see there's a big red render button over here, and I also have this little button here which lets me export just a single image or a snapshot. But I'm going to go ahead and click render. Now let's take a look at our options. Here we're seeing our preview, and we have a couple of different options. I can change the frames that I want to export, and I can change the dimensions here. I can go to advanced, and I can actually export the 3D tracking data for use in After Effects, which once again, this is kind of super in-depth and advanced. And I'm going to save this for another tutorial, but very exciting stuff. It allows you to composite stuff straight into your map here. I'm going to have the texture quality set to high. I'm going to go back to basic, and for attribution, you can have the Google Earth logo set anywhere and wherever you want it, but you have to have it on there. And as of right now, this is free for use for any kind of non-profit, non-commercial use. There's no way to buy a license just yet for this, but I urge you to go and read the guidelines. But if you're working in news or you're working on a documentary, as long as you do the proper attributions, it's fine to use. So now I'm going to go ahead and click start. Now this is kind of the interesting thing here, is that this is going to render directly here to my downloads folder. And if I go and I open up a new tab here and I kind of navigate away, it will pause this render, and I have to have this tab active. However, if I open up a new window, this will still render, everything will be fine. So if you're ever working in here and you open up you open up another tab, just know that this is going to be paused, and it can also cause some problems with your render. So just kind of keep this tab open. And really don't worry about the speed of your internet. That has no effect on the quality of the render. It will just take the render a bit longer to finish. Okay, so that render is complete. Now I'm going to show you how we can bring these into Adobe After Effects and Premiere Pro. First, I'm going to go over to my Finder window and go to Downloads, and you'll see that I have these two exports here. The first is my orbit, and the second is the render that we just rendered out. So I'm going to decompress both of these. And now I'm going to go over and we'll do Adobe Premiere Pro first. Now I'm in Premiere Pro. I'm going to double click in the project panel. I'm going to go to the downloads folder, and first I'm going to grab this orbit one. You'll see I have a footage folder here. If I click on footage, we have basically an image sequence. That's how these export. They export as JPEG sequences, and here we have 750 images. So what I need to do, I need to bring this in as a sequence. So to do that, I just select the first image, go over to options, and make sure image sequence is selected. I'm going to select import, and now we have our image sequence here. If I click on it, you can see up here the stats or the tech specs: 1920 by 1080, 25 seconds at 30 frames per second. So now I'm going to drag this over, and we'll just create a new sequence here based on those settings. And now I full screen that, and we can see now we have this great looking 1920 by 1080 orbit that is also loopable. And we also have our Google Earth logo right there. So that's looking good. Now I can double click and do the same thing for our other one. Grab the footage, first image, and options. This is selected, import. There we go. And now this one's a little bit different. You can see we changed the time of day. This is more kind of like at high noon. This is more kind of in the morning, 10 to 11. And it's a bit slow, a little more slow, and we have the ease out and the ease in. This one's much more subtle. Looking good. Okay, now let's go over to After Effects, and it's the same kind of deal. When you're importing in After Effects, you just need to make sure, okay, we're already in one of the folders here. You just need to make sure you select one image and look down in your options and make sure that Import or JPEG sequence is selected, and that will bring it in as a JPEG sequence. This is 450 frames. Then I can bring this into the new comp, and then voila, I will have a new comp. There we go. And as I said before, you can go pretty crazy in depth if you want to composite. I'm going to create another tutorial, and I'm going to show you how to composite, exporting 3D tracking data from Google Earth Studio and using it within After Effects. So be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell, because that tutorial is in the pipeline. Okay, before I end the tutorial, I want to show you one last thing that is just so super cool. If you aren't impressed yet, you're about to be. So I'm going to go back to Add Attributes. I'm going to turn on Time of Day, hit Done, and now you can see we have this super cool view. We can actually see the lights of all the cities here. We have this crazy Milky Way galaxy in the back. You can see the sun. I mean, that is super cool. And even if I go in, let's say we want to go and we could do a time lapse of the stars here. So I'm going to go over here. This is this little monument in Wyoming. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. It's called Devil's Tower. So we have the stars on the horizon here. Now watch what happens as I change this here. We have this beautiful, where's that galaxy? I want to make sure we get that in the shot. So I can orbit around this way. There it is. So we could go in here and do some kind of crazy cool time lapse. I mean, look at this. This is unbelievable. If you're not impressed by this, yeah, I don't know, check your pulse, man, because now I could go. Oh, actually, I already have some keyframes in here. Look at that. See? And there we go. We have this animation. Very, very cool. And now we can even have it creep in. Like I can set keyframes for all. Come here, and then we can have it just kind of creep in a little bit. Like I said, you want to learn the shortcuts because it's can be kind of hard to figure out how to do this. Okay, so now you see we're moving in. Just incredible. Okay, so there you have it. There's an in-depth look at Google Earth Studio. I'd love to hear what you think. I'm absolutely psyched. This is so cool. I just love everything about this program, and I really hope I can incorporate it in a project soon. So let me know what you think in the comments section. I'd love to hear if you're going to use this tool. If you've already used it, send me a link. I'd love to see what you created with it. And also, as always, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you get updates for all my new content. And hit that thumbs up button if you like the video. I'll see you next time.